If you've ever had the thought, what if I don't get the job? Or what if I don't get a raise? What if he doesn't ask me out? Or what if he or she doesn't say yes? How about, what if the audience stops listening to me talk? We all walk around what-ifing all the time, all of us. But we have this tendency to skew negative. Focusing on the negative feels good in a way, because if something goes wrong, you'll be prepared, and it won't hurt as much. You'll be safe. In 2017, my sister, who is a high school math teacher, asked me to speak to her class after school one day about positivity. At the time, I was starting to transition out of a long career in the television and film industry to become a holistic health coach. I was a newly published author, having written my first book about how I healed myself of the skin disease psoriasis. A significant part of my process was consistently maintaining a positive attitude and adapting a ritual of self-love. This not only helped me heal my skin, but so many areas in my life. And it didn't hurt that I was naturally a very bubbly, optimistic, upbeat person to begin with. Talking to these kids was right in my wheelhouse. I would teach her students how to create their very own positivity practice, not only to help them become more confident people, but also show them how to create happy and healthy lives for themselves. In other words, I would teach them self-love, but packaged in a way that was easy for them to digest. I couldn't wait to share a few tools that helped me attract so much good into my life. I wish I learned these when I was a teenager because I truly needed them back then. If I can just impact one kid from her class, leading them to have an easier experience at home, at school, or with their friends, I knew it would be incredibly rewarding. And thus my planning for this workshop began. The day came and the event went off without a hitch. I taught them 5 tools. What if being one of them? What I did was encourage the kids to go against their instincts and skew positive. What if I got 100 on my exam? What if he asked me to the prom? What if I got into my dream college? You see, spin is everything. Just look at the news. 2 networks can report on the same exact story and each have a different villain. So what does that tell you? We see what we want to see. Seek out negativity, and you'll surely find it. But spin your life positive, and that's what you'll get in return. Truthfully, I didn't know if they were listening at all. Some kids have great poker faces. A few seemed bored, some looked really into it, and others were distracted. It wasn't until my sister called me the next day that I got any indication of the impression I had made. She was so excited to tell me about this young girl who, like so many students, puts way too much pressure on herself to succeed. However, the day after the workshop, she ran up to my sister and said, "Mrs. Weiler, I was really stressed out about my track meet yesterday, but during practice, I thought a lot about what your sister had taught us about thinking positively." And I said to myself, what if I do really well today? And I did. It actually helped me. This seemingly small moment was so big for me. It was powerful to see the effect we can have on our young people when we teach them something new and wonderful. Between the years 2007 and 2015, the suicide rate for teenage girls ages 15 to 19 doubled. 28% of students ages 12 to 18 reported being bullied at school, which can lead to truancy, anxiety, shame, headaches, stomach pains, aggression, and depression. 40% of teenage females have an eating disorder, and 1 out of 4 girls suffers from depression by the age of 14. 1 out of 3 American teens are now considered obese, and type 2 diabetes is on the rise. Autoimmune disease is more prevalent with adolescent girls and young women being at greatest risk. That was me. Out of those 12 boxes, I checked off 6. I was bullied in the 5th and 6th grade, which made me the master of creative excuses to skip school. I experienced anxiety and shame, which led to depression. And at 19, I developed the autoimmune disease psoriasis. I'm sure all of you have seen the commercials for various medications to treat it, or perhaps you've heard it discussed on Keeping Up with the Kardashians. Come to think of it, maybe it's something that afflicts Kims. Are there any Kims in the audience with psoriasis? No? Okay, well, maybe it's just Kim K and I. Essentially, what it breaks down to is, while the normal person's skin sheds about once a month, my skin, my largest organ, sheds every few days. This is way too fast. So my skin gets irritated and produces red, scaly spots. Not cute. Overall, I grew up feeling extremely insecure. For the first 19 years of my life, I hid the secret of my father's drinking problem. And for the next 19 years, I carried around the shame of my skin condition. It affected everything I did, every decision and plan I made, every outfit I wore. I was living a lie. I lied to my friends, to my dates, and worst of all, to myself. I kept telling myself that I was ugly, disgusting, and unworthy of love. My thoughts were consumed with these 3 words: I am ashamed. I needed to learn acceptance of myself, with or without a skin disease. And neither my school nor my home equipped me with these life skills. While I certainly struggled in my childhood, it is such a different world now. With kids living on their smartphones, using FaceTime apps in lieu of actual FaceTime with each other. Social media creates this world where we're more connected than ever before, yet more disconnected than ever before. Everything is impersonal and feels as though we're incessantly looking through a window at other people's lives, not getting invitations to all the fun we think they're having. Our news cycle is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, desensitizing us to sensationalism. It's constant stimulus everywhere. With all the computers, phones, and apps, kids today have no way to really turn off and escape. At least they don't think they do, because they're not taught how. So let's talk about self-love for a moment. Some people immediately tune out when they hear those 2 words together, like it's too hippy-dippy and new age for them. No problem. I get it. So what if I said empowerment instead? That's what self-love basically breaks down to, is living from a place of power. So imagine, for a second, if empowerment were a curriculum in schools, and every young person in this country can learn tools to learn how to cope with their emotions on life's journey. This could potentially mean less depression, obesity, bullying, eating disorders, sexual assaults, and suicide. By simply teaching self-love to these kids, maybe we could prevent, or at the very least reduce, these common problems amongst our youth. I truly believe that young boys taught self-love grow into respectful men. And an empowered girl today becomes a strong female leader tomorrow. But most of us don't get this kind of education. And we're left to our own devices to learn how to care for and empower ourselves. And there's so many ways to do that, big and small. Spending time with yourself, not necessarily playing Candy Crush or watching reruns of This Is Us, but actually doing what brings you joy. Being loving and kind to your mind and your body. Putting yourself first. Trusting things will work out even when you're full of doubt. Not allowing fear to stop you from taking risks. Being unapologetically you. Saying no when you don't want to do something. Forgiving yourself and others. Being aware and grateful. Finding perfection in your imperfections. Taking time to de-stress. Finding your voice and standing up for yourself. If I loved myself when I was younger, I wouldn't have dated boys who treated me poorly. I would have said no to cigarettes and alcohol. And I wouldn't have been so scared to spend some time alone getting to know myself. When you love yourself, it enables you to gain confidence, take risks, fully express yourself. Take responsibility for your actions. Try new things and feel happier. It also, believe it or not, strengthens your immune system. This is the path to success and chasing your dreams in this lifetime. This is what young people need to know, and we can tell them. Kids across this country must be reminded of their worth and shown that loving yourself first and foremost should be the primary objective to living a happy, healthy life. This thought, this idea lights me up inside. Since learning that myself, teaching it to others has become my mission, which is why I've teamed up with over 30 of the most incredible women from all walks of life to inspire and educate young girls all over the country and eventually boys. We are the Love Group. And although our backgrounds and areas of expertise differ, we all have one universal thing in common. We've learned our power comes from within. Our goal is to travel across the country to schools, camps, colleges, organizations, and rehabilitation centers to talk about the topics that are crucial for every young woman's happiness. Everything from confidence to bullying, to self-expression, to positivity, most importantly, self-love. We all wish we had something like this offered at our school when we were younger. And that's what we hear from so many people when we share what we're doing. How many of you know a teacher? Raise your hand if you know a teacher personally. Just take a moment, please keep them up and take a moment to look around the room at all the hands raised. Okay, you can put them down. What if you shared this story with all the teachers in your lives and they shared this tool with their students? This one tool, one classroom at a time. There is so much potential here. This is only one tool in our arsenal, which you now have the power to wield. And power is such an incredible thing. If we raise our boys and girls with the intention and the tools to feel empowered, our society would look completely different. It would have a completely different perspective, one of possibility. Imagine kids everywhere growing up, living a life that they're in love with because they feel powerful and worthy. The thought gives me the chills. When you love yourself, you live your life from a place of power, and all you spread is love. You care that others are happy, and you have the confidence to do what really makes you feel good. If you think about it, our lives are essentially storybooks. There are many different chapters, and we have the power to write each and every page. Roughly, the first half of my story revolved around this predominant theme of shame. But I kept turning the pages, and I eventually realized that the second half didn't have to be. This was a major breakthrough for me, not to mention a relief. If I changed my way of thinking, learned to accept myself for exactly who I was, and embraced every part of me, I could fulfill my need for love within myself. And guess what? Through some dietary changes and some really positive thinking, my psoriasis actually started to heal. I had been neglecting my biggest organ. I would look at my skin and think thoughts like, I'm so ashamed. Who will love me? I feel worthless. What it needed was love. It had always been receiving negativity and hatred from me, and I needed to start playing what if. What if I learned acceptance for my skin? What if I loved my skin? What if my skin healed? And what if I knew all of this when I was a teenager? What if every teenager knew this? What if loving yourself was homework? And what if we created that possibility? Thank you.